Boom. And we are live. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, Periscope, YouTube. No LinkedIn yet, but we'll get there. But what's up, Joe? I want to welcome you to the LunarCRUSH live stream. I got Joe Grech here from Chiliz, community lead, who's joining us today. John Farger will be with us here shortly, and we'll talk through some more technicals and coins. But hey, man, I want to get started and just say thanks for joining us. You're joining us. It's a little bit later over where you're at in Malta, right?
Yeah, it's 6 p.m. now.
Cool. So we got 9 a.m.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, I wanted to get started, and I'm glad that it's just me right now, so I can start diving in a little bit to Chiliz, and I want to just start diving straight into that and and Socios and kind of how that how it all came together. John is, I think, a little bit more in depth on exactly what you guys are doing and everything else. But if you could just kind of fill me in on what's the use case? What are you guys working on? I know it is sports related. I know it's something along tracking and doing something along that. So just give me a little brief. What is it?
Sure. I'll just say I'm Joe. I'm the community lead at Chiliz. I've worked at Chiliz for over 2 years now, which is basically since the very beginning of the whole concept. We are I like to say, the leading digital currency for sports and entertainment. We are tokenizing sports teams, so soccer or football, as we correctly call it over here in Europe. Soccer teams, esports teams, and basketball now. Lots more teams from different sports to come in the future. We work with these teams to basically tokenize them and create a fan token for them. And these fan tokens are like a voting license, which allows their fans to take part in club decisions. So, for example, one of our partners is Juventus FC, one of the biggest football teams in the world, definitely the biggest football team in Italy. And their fans basically chose a new goal celebration song for our application, which is socios.com. So there's kind of two separate parts of our company. There's the Chiliz and the crypto side of it, and then there's Socios and the fan engagement sports side of the business. With these fan tokens, you can vote in polls, and it's all about kind of helping clubs increase their fan engagement, as well as helping them reward their loyal fans, because of clubs kind of struggle how to kind of see who the super fans are. We're trying to kind of provide a method in which it's much easier for the clubs to find their super fans and reward them appropriately. We've sent hundreds of fans on VIP experiences to their favorite teams. So we're currently partnered with Juventus, Paris Saint-Germain, AS Roma, Galatasaray, OG, Barcelona, UFC, Atletico Madrid, and there's one more, Independiente, which is an Argentinian team.
Nice. So who's your favorite?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Listen, I'm a tech geek and an esports geek. I come from an esports background, so that's kind of my interest. So I'd say probably my favorite is OG, which is the esports team that we partnered with. They were back-to-back international winners. That's one of the biggest tournaments in esports as it is today, with like $25 million prize pool. So I'd say it would be OG. I'm not so much into what I call traditional sport. I'm into new sport.
And what game are they playing most?
They're playing Dota.
Okay.
It's Defense of the Ancients. It's like League of Legends, but it's much more complicated than League of Legends. And also they have a Counter-Strike team as well, which is my favorite game. But I decided to throw in the towel. I'm 25 now, and I realized that I was wasting a lot of my hours of the day playing video games, and decided it wasn't doing too much good for me in my personal life. So I don't play anymore.
You're retired. Well,
yes, I'm retired.
I think in those early days and playing esports, I mean, I played too. I mean, I started off playing Rainbow Six back in the day, and on the online gaming network. And, we had, at one point, it was basically, if you had a cable, Ethernet hookup at your house, I mean, you were just pinging everyone. I mean, you were the best, and finding a couple people in your neighborhood to get to play with you. And so we got, like, at one point, God, I remember like the original online gaming network. It was like OGNnetwork.com. I don't know if they ended up being the still online gaming network, but we ended up being once in a while, we were like the #1 clan in that. And then moved over to like an EverQuest type game, which was just more long tail, which was amazing. But I think I learned more from like overclocking my hard drive and like figuring out how to win in Rainbow Six than I think I learned like through all of high school and college potentially.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
never give up on the esports, man.
Yeah, no, it's true. I have to give credit to my gaming background because it kind of it gave me the drive to learn more and to gain knowledge more than anything I ever did in my life. So when I say my background is esports, it started off as obviously just gaming, casual gaming, where I played 16 hours of Minecraft a day, which is obviously quite unhealthy. But it led me to kind of become more business orientated, learn about marketing because I was running online server networks and actually like making money as like a 15-year-old on the internet. My mom thought I was like doing some dodgy stuff on the internet, but really I was just a nerd playing Minecraft and making money from it. So
that's amazing. And so that kind of that sets you up a little bit. And I think that's a pretty, it's a new path, but I think it's a good path for people that are joining companies and learning about marketing. And I really think that the gaming companies understand engagement. They understand marketing in a much more deeper way than maybe some of these larger brands do. And it's because you've got the attention span is much shorter. It's got to be ultra interesting because these people are used to playing games that are 10 times more interesting than you could potentially even create like, a car commercial or whatnot. And so, I think that was probably a transition for you.
We're kind of moving into an era of what I like to call like hyper engagement. So brands used to just post stuff and never reply or engage with their audience, but now we're in kind of the phase of hyper engagement. I mean, you see how I, for example, manage the Chiliz Twitter. It's all about engaging, liking everything. I have tracking of anyone who mentions $CHZ, anyone who mentions Chiliz, Chiliz.com. And it's all about just searching for those people and engaging with them and creating like a positive connection with our brand. Because I feel like that's kind of the new era of marketing. It's like heavily community-based marketing.
Yeah. And you guys definitely chose a sector to start building and utilizing, blockchain technology and utilizing the Chiliz token to, go after football teams or soccer teams. I mean, these are some of the largest brands out there, and that's the way to create kind of a mass adoption that I think other people aren't going to have the luxury of working through. So it's huge, huge places that you guys are getting engagement in. I mean, tell us a little bit about, how it's been engaging with some of these really large accounts and what they're doing. And as you start doing that, I'm going to add John into the chat as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think obviously we signed our first team, which was Paris Saint-Germain. And people were still curious about the concept of what we were doing. And obviously, it's a completely new concept. A lot of the innovative clubs would jump on board first. So, Juventus is known as like an innovator in terms of tech and partnerships. And slowly, as we increased the size of our partner portfolio, we saw that, it becomes a lot more easier to onboard new teams because of everyone is seeing that, our vision is being fulfilled. We're creating this platform with thousands of users and people are actually spending money to vote in their favorite team's club decisions. So once they see that, for example, the Barcelona fan token sold out in 1.3 million in 4 hours. On the exchange, it was like $650,000 in 20 seconds. Sold out basically.
And which exchange did you guys use that or which exchange did you guys launch on?
We actually launched at the start of this year our own exchange, which uses some cloud provider of some Asian cloud provider for an exchange. We launched that earlier this year, and the Barcelona fan token offering was the first one we actually launched on that.
Very cool.
That was Socios, correct? Nice to see you, Joe.
Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you too.
Yeah.
So we have two. We are kind of sorry. We kind of have two platforms now. We have Socios and we have the Chiliz Exchange, and we launched the FTOs in like parallel. So the Chiliz Exchange is more targeted towards the crypto enthusiast who's going to purchase more fan tokens. So we allocate more supply and a bigger limit. And then the Socios.com application, we allocate a smaller supply and smaller caps so that the fans and the crypto enthusiasts who aren't the bigger fish can also have a chance in getting their hands on some fan tokens too.
Interesting. Well, so you had mentioned, it's for basically voting rights. You can choose the direction of different things. I'd love to hear more about that and where that might be going.
Yeah.
And is that, is that the, I guess there's a question here also, what is the roadmap of Chiliz? But I mean, if we're looking at some of these tokens and we're looking at some of these teams like say FC Barcelona, am I voting on, does this get into esports? Does this get into the players? Where does this go?
Well, the limits, it really depends on the clubs themselves. So the clubs basically come to us with a proposal for a poll. And obviously, the bigger the club, the less kind of experimental they're going to be, at least to begin with. Juventus, for example, did a great job with their first big poll, which was changing the goal celebration song, which hadn't been changed for like, I don't know, I don't want to say a number because I don't know it off the top of my head. But that's quite a big deal to give fans the chance to vote in a poll on an application to change that. They just launched the new poll, which redesigned the player bus. So they had like 3 or 4 designs of a new player bus, and the fans got to choose which bus design they like the most. So I'd say like in esports, it's going to be probably more interesting, at least for me, because it's more fluid and it's more fast paced. So and it's also a lot of a younger industry, and the teams are willing to try a lot of new things that the clubs with very strict corporate structures don't necessarily want to take the risks on doing. So with esports teams, they're going to take more risks, and they're probably going to give their fans more control. But when it comes to, for example, choosing rosters and signing new players, I still don't really think that that's going to happen anytime soon. But it would be cool. Maybe for example, we would partner with a smaller soccer team in a lower division who would be willing to try something like that with us. I think that's going to be more likely. But yeah, it's definitely exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how creative the clubs and the esports teams are going to get.
I love it. It's beautiful.
That would be really fun if they could actually choose the rosters. I mean, but when you leave those decisions up to the internet, I mean, I remember they tried to do that with I think it was like a Coast Guard boat here, or it was some sort of boat that was here in San Diego, and they let the community decide what the name of the boat would be. And normally with military boats, it's all these like kind of rugged, like cool names, and they ended up going with Bodie McBoatface.
Yes, I remember.
They ended up actually having to name this like military boat Bodie McBoatface. So it's like not the most intimidating name. And so you might end up like getting a bunch of players that people are voting on that they just want to see someone actually just get crushed.
Like we want to give the fans some increased control, but we also have to maintain competitive integrity,
Yeah.
And obviously, cool. the clubs and teams still want to win themselves. So
we got a question here from Paulo, who says, "What other top sports is Chiliz looking forward to include in the platform?" And I had that kind of same question. Man, are you guys looking at things like potentially like the drone racing league here in the US, or I mean, where are you guys kind of looking?
Well, I would say that we're looking at all avenues of sports. Like, we're not really going to rule out anything. I'd say wherever there's like a fan base and a passionate fan base, I think that there's room for creating this connection through our application with their fans. So I think that we're looking at cricket, basketball. You name a sport in your head, and it's probably something that we're looking into.
Does it get into the players? Could you tokenize some of the players themselves individually, aside from the team that they're on, that you may also tokenize?
We've had some kind of internal discussions about tokenizing individuals, and kind of the roadblock we come to. It's like, what happens when that player or individual retires or doesn't kind of continue on the path that they were going on. I feel like currently, at least with our current strategy, it's much easier to commit to teams and clubs that have like a solid foundation for a long-term roadmap and growth through their demonstrated history of being sports teams. So I'd like to see tokenized sports players, and I know there are some crypto companies who are looking into stuff like that, and I find that very interesting myself.
There's a lot of debate. There's a lot of there was one basketball player that was trying to tokenize his career, and there was a lot of pushback from the NBA. Who was that? I can't remember now off the top of my head.
I don't remember. I remember reading about it.
But yeah, it gets interesting too, because you guys are working with the UFC, and technically their teams are individuals. So how is UFC going to come into it? How's that going to work?
So with the UFC, we haven't kind of released any information about what that's going to look like. But what we have done is, so in the Socios.com application, we have a native token there, which is called Socios United. And these can be earned for free by our augmented reality geolocation game, which is called Token Hunt. Basically, you collect tokens by walking around. We actually changed it so people could hunt from home because of the coronavirus. So you can use these tokens to vote. And we had some prediction games for predicting the winners of the fights on some fight nights. And those winners would win UFC passport, which basically is like a VIP experience with UFC. So it's for at least for now, it's going to be a lot more about rewarding our fans and our users with these kind of VIP experiences from a UFC point of view. But I'm sure that in the coming months or towards the end of the year, there'll be more kind of concrete information out there of how we'd work with the UFC.
Yeah, that's a big deal. If you ever are in Vegas on a fight night, it is insane. It's unbelievable, and there's all sorts of experiences. Whether you're actually there watching the fight or anywhere in any hotel in Vegas, there's something going on. I look forward to that. That's exciting. That's awesome. Love it.
Yeah. So Joe, I mean, you guys are a big platform. You guys are going into a huge space, and you're tackling, and you're disrupting potentially a big problem. I mean, in our space, it seems like, everyone kind of understands that this technology is here to stay. And whether it's Bitcoin or whether it's some other tokens that's, solving the double spend problem and trustless exchange. I mean, how are you guys thinking about the future there? And how are you thinking about, just talk to, bring us inside a little bit and tell us, like, what are you guys what are you guys focusing on? Like, what gets you guys excited? And like, what is kind of like the vision and mission over there?
Yeah. So at least speaking for myself, and I think that I can speak on behalf of the company here. The problem with crypto right now, it's a lot of the same cash exchanging hands, and there's very little kind of new money coming in on the consumer side of things, unless you take the marketing that the crypto companies do and maybe you attract some new users. But when you're moving into an industry as big as the sports industry, to me, it's the biggest possible chance for mass adoption in the space. If you can create a killer app that's working in the sports and entertainment industry that uses blockchain technology, that's going to be a massive driving force of mass adoption, and that's kind of that's at least my lifeblood, and I hope the lifeblood of Chiliz, and I hope people see that we really care about creating mass adoption and increasing adoption. We're focused on building a user-friendly experience. So we've had Juventus fans, AS Roma fans, Barcelona fans all download our app with no previous knowledge of cryptocurrency. They've bought our native token Chiliz on our platform with their credit card. Then they've bought a fan token. They still have no idea about the underlying technology. So the key goal as time goes on is to kind of produce some educational resources and kind of educate these sports fans on what they're actually, the technology in the background a little bit. Obviously, we're not going to go into too much crazy depth, but just to give them an introduction to the space, because we think that it's almost, you need them to understand a little bit about it, because of, are we really doing mass adoption if we're not telling them about it? Like, that's at least something that I thought about. It's like, we are driving mass adoption, but they don't know they're adopting something. They just feel like they're using any other application, right? So we have to kind of educate them, and that's going to be it's going to be a hard task for sure, but it's going to be an exciting task. And I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. I'm working on some educational stuff right now, which hopefully gets launched shortly when we're not so busy, because we have lots of good stuff coming up right now.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's different than if I was going to say a lot of people don't actually know like how cloud computing works, right? And they don't really understand that their TikTok app is run on whether it's an AWS server or a DigitalOcean server or an Azure server. It's like they don't know that is the technology. They just know it enables a better and more seamless experience. And but I think it's a little different with cryptocurrency because it is tangible and it can be in their hands.
Yes.
And it does have a different sense of value. So it's like in one step, you're right. Like you don't really need people to understand why the double spend problem, being solved is such a big deal. But at the same breath, you want them to adopt something that's new and different that could lead them down another 1,000 other paths.
Yes, and also crypto is so community driven. So I think that's obviously a big part of my role is understanding how important the community side of things are. And obviously, like if you could compare to cloud computing, there's not thousands of Telegram groups where people are chatting about cloud computing all day, whereas there are in crypto. So it kind of makes more sense to slowly introduce people more about the concept and ideas of blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
This is actually, I love this conversation, and it's been one of our complaints, and we've had a lot of these live streams and a lot of conferences, and one of our chief complaints with the entire space is that we're talking to ourselves. Every conference, if you back in the day when you could travel all over the world and go to all these conferences, notice how you were seeing the exact same faces.
Yeah.
And everyone's saying the exact same things.
Yeah.
People were almost falling into these canyons of who they are. Like, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. Oh, I only deal with Ethereum, or I only deal with this coin. And it's like, great. But when you measured community, and this is something we'd seen up until the last month or two, like social activity for the most part across the community was stable. Meaning, great, some moved up, some moved down, but approximately 200 to 300,000 real posts a day is what we were seeing for about 9 to 12 months. And so up and down a little, it varies, but until recently, we were not seeing a lot of growth of unique individual users. And this has been a big issue. And it's like, when we see what you guys are doing, we've actually been on some of these streams before mentioning it where, gosh, like one tweet from FC Barcelona with 33 million followers on just one of their accounts. They have so many accounts. Probably if you add the players into it, you have a couple 100 million people that are following all of them. And what is the actual value of that, right? And that becomes something that is near and dear to our hearts, basically, because we think to have that monetary surge, you have to have community surge first. You have to have people excited before they're going to put their money into it.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear more about your social strategies, considering who you're dealing with is like, there's not another project dealing with who you're dealing with. And so I'd be curious, how do you latch onto all these teams? What does your social strategy look like?
I just have the Chiliz page pulled up on LunarCRUSH here, so while you're talking, people can check out the social volume.
Cool. Yeah, so initially, obviously, before the coronavirus, when times were a little bit easier, the social strategy was focused heavily around rewarding the passionate fans, sending them on unique experiences. So we partner, for example, with Juventus. We have a skybox there, sending fans to the skybox, making them take lots of pictures, showing them enjoying themselves. That creates kind of almost like a snowball effect. Other fans who follow them get interested, like, what is this? How have you gone there? Like, tell me about it. And it all was just basically like a snowball from there. Obviously, now that we're in the pandemic, we can't send fans to stadiums right now, unfortunately. So we had to kind of change our social strategy. I'd say we did a pretty good job, but obviously I'm slightly biased. But we worked with teams to offer kind of these new experiences. So we've been on the LEDs. We've had fans send in their video of them reacting to like a goal or celebrating to cheer on the team. We put their fans on the LEDs around the Juventus stadium. With Galatasaray, we had the opportunity to reward token holders with with having their face or the picture on a cardboard cutout in the audience. I'm there somewhere actually. So is a lot of our team, which is quite cool. So they're all kind of ways that, new ways of having to engage with fans in ways that we haven't before, because we haven't needed to stretch so far with the new age because of the virus. But yeah, we're focused heavily on engagement. Like I said earlier, hyper engagement, not just from Chiliz, just from Socios as well. We're a very engaged brand. We're very personable. So it's not like we're just speaking to our audience. Our audience is speaking back, and we're having conversations. They get to know members of the team, which is quite unique. They get to meet members of our team as well if they go to unique experiences. So we create like this very positive brand connection with them, and I'd say that's a big part of the success in our social strategy.
Love it. Great.
Yeah. How has it, sports in person? I know even over in Europe, you can place bets a little bit in some of the stadiums. You can't do that here in the United States yet, but I think we're on kind of the pathway there. I mean, how are you guys? Some of these small pivots you're talking about, tactical pivots that you've done, to kind of deal with the situation of people not being in person. I mean, that could last for quite a long time, but it's also maybe a little bit of a glimpse into the future of what engagement looks like for sporting events. I mean, is this now on the roadmap as something where you're like, hey, we 100% need an in-home, strategy no matter what going forward? Have you guys kind of pivoted towards that?
I would say we are mainly, quick thinkers, and we think a lot outside of the box. So when we're presented with an issue, we rapidly find a solution. Obviously, the virus is it's a pretty big issue that no one had like an immediate solution to, but a lot of teamwork and brainstorming to overcome these issues. But we will work closely with clubs to see what is possible, to do our best to be able to continue rewarding fans in ways that haven't been done before. But in terms of future kind of ways that's going to happen, I don't really have any insight on that right now.
Yeah, hoping we just get back on the pitch with everyone.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's very different. It's interesting. I've been watching basketball. I was watching a Laker game, the LA Lakers, a little bit ago, and last Thursday, I think they're playing against the Utah Jazz, and it was like they had these digital displays with fake fans, and it's fake sound.
Do they have like fake audio as well?
Yeah, the background's a little strange. They don't quite have it right yet, but it's getting better. But there's something missing for sure. But yeah, I can't help but think, I'm like, I hear you mention, Joe, like, what if this sticks? What if this stays? And I keep thinking, like, do some of these digital displays in the front that are courtside, do these start to stick? Do these start to stay forever? Versus like just completely get rid of those and then there's just fans? Like, is that another opportunity that you can end up taking advantage of in the future? So I'm curious what actually does come out of this.
No, it's very Black Mirror.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's kind of like hyper engagement of what you're talking about. And I mean, one thing you do notice at a stadium that's extremely full, especially if you go to like a huge football game or like a Super Bowl or anything like that, is people, there's not enough bandwidth in that area for at least the telecom providers to give you good service. I mean, you're back down to like 3G, you're not engaging as heavily. And so I do think that some of these stadiums are going to need to outfit, and maybe, who knows, maybe Elon solves this with Starlink and like, we just don't have to worry about bandwidth ever again. But I do think that there's going to be something there, because you're right, John. It's like, if you've got these cool pieces that you can engage with and ways to pay that are touchless, I mean, that's something that, I mean, just imagine like touchless payments. And I mean, I know they're a little bit better, I think, in Europe on some of this stuff, but even here, now that we're dealing with COVID, it's like paying at your table or paying for something with your phone and just like near field, interaction there. It seems like these stadiums are going to need to change, which seems like a huge opportunity for you guys at Chiliz if people can start to pay for maybe drinks or sodas or beers, whatever it may be, with their Chiliz token at stadiums. I mean, is that something that you guys are already looking towards doing?
It's something that we have considered and talked about, but at least initially we feel like you can pay by cash and it's seamless. Obviously now you can maybe consider it a bit more, but you can pay by cash and it's seamless, or pay by card. So I feel like, there's not really kind of an innovation that's needed. However, we are soon releasing a socios.com card, which is going to be like it's not going to be a crypto card. It's going to be a Euro GBP card, which fans can use in club shops, stadiums, and that's linked to the app, and they can receive rewards, cashback, kind of bonus tokens for purchasing a certain amount of merchandise in the club store. So thinking it from that way, that's definitely something that we're looking at doing, with the new card, and more information is going to come out about that soon, hopefully. I'm very excited to be able to share that. So yeah, I'd say that there are opportunities, but we don't necessarily feel like that we want to become, just a payment method, a stadium. We want to be more outside of the box, more disruptive or innovative there.
Do you deal with the authenticity of merchandise at all? Like, you go to any city in Europe and there's a bunch of especially Barcelona, there's a bunch of fake shirts that everyone's wearing.
Especially in Asia as well, yeah.
I can't imagine, yeah, right.
It's not something that's on our roadmap at all, to be honest. We're kind of, all of these concepts and ideas, they're really cool, but we have to also go back to the main vision of the company, and that's increasing fan engagement. So I don't really necessarily believe, yes, it's good for the club to have, a way to check the authenticity of merchandise, but at the end of the day, it's not really helping increase fan engagement. It's not really solving the problem that we set out to solve.
Okay, makes sense.
Very cool, man. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, before we got on, you were kind of giving me a little insight as to how you got there. And I mean, just tell us kind of how your journey of how you got to Chiliz and why you decided to join there. And I mean, there's probably a million things that you can do. So give us a little insight as to how you got there.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying I was never very academic in my life. I was more of a practical learner. I like to watch and I like to learn by watching people do stuff. So I didn't do terribly in what you guys call high school, I guess. I didn't do terribly in school, but I didn't go to university or college. I basically spent, 16, 12 hours a day playing video games. Kind of went on the wrong path, but all of the things I learned on the wrong path took me to the right path. It's kind of hard to explain, but things started to sort themselves out when I found my passion at the time, which was esports. So I met a lot of people on the internet who I played Counter-Strike with. I started to travel to esports events around Europe, like Cologne, Germany, Sweden, and make lots of friends in some decent places. And one time I was at my friend's house in Sweden after going to an esports event, and I saw a job offering for a startup in Finland, which was kind of not fully esports focused, but it was providing a software for gamers it was a Chrome extension for people who watch Twitch streams. I know you guys probably are familiar with Twitch, and it would allow people to take these short 30-second highlights from people's Twitch streams. So if something funny just happened and you wanted to share that moment with your friend, you just press the button on your browser and it gave you the upload with a link, and you could send that to your friends. And at the time, that was like a genius idea to me. So I saw they had a job opening, and I applied to it. And then like 3 months later, end up moving to Finland. Like crazy life change, that was for sure. The coldest country in Europe. And I'm not going to lie to you, I lived with my parents my whole life. So it was a learn very quickly, fail a lot, and learn very quickly from these failures. And yeah, I lived in Finland for 1 year and 4 months working at this company. Unfortunately, Twitch actually released a native tool called Clips, and our viewership numbers went from 60 million a month to 5 million. So it hit the business quite hard. We did pretty well. We raised like 1.3 million in some rounds. with investors like Union Square Ventures, for example. They were a lead investor in the company in Finland. And then once they ran out of funds, I moved back home to England for a few months, and I had this friend who I met through esports. Tom, his name is. He actually works here at Chiliz, and he just sent me a message on Twitter. It's like, "You want to work in esports, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to work in esports." He's like, "Do you want to live in Malta?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd like to live in Malta." And then next thing you know, I had some interviews, and then kind of evolved my role in the company from esports, social media, to more on the crypto side of things, as my knowledge of crypto sparked in Finland in 2017, thanks to the CEO of the company. He founded the first crypto exchange in Finland. So he was just talking to me all day about Ethereum this, Ethereum that, ICO, make money fast. And I was like, okay, this is strange to me, but I'll start to do some research. And instead of playing games for 12 hours a day, I was sitting in Telegram groups and reading white papers for 12 hours a day, even whilst working. So I learned a lot very quickly, and I think that now I have a pretty good, well-rounded knowledge of the space and the industry. And yeah, the first cryptocurrency I bought was Ethereum. I still mainly hold Ethereum. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't hold any Bitcoin, and I don't think I ever will. I just personally believe that sure, Bitcoin could succeed and scale and solve the problem of the unbanked, and providing people with access to cash trustlessly. I fully believe that that's possible. But when you look at the world of Ethereum, it's so much more exciting because you can build on top of it, and you can make such cool applications like ours, for example. And we're not even like that techie when it comes to smart contracts. There's kind of very little. There's much more cool things happening in the space of Ethereum.
Awesome, man. Well, it seems like, I mean, that's there's, we listen to those stories all the time of how you kind of got involved. And a lot of times it actually starts with, oh, I bought a little Bitcoin, and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole from there. But for you, it sounds like, hey, I was in esports, and, the people that are in that space, which it seems like are gaming and crypto are very close together. It just seems like that space just kind of melded in with crypto. And that's how you found it, which gives you, I think, a little bit of a different perspective. And just it shows in you saying that, there's a lot of Bitcoin maximalists out there that's all they're talking about. And for you, you're already like, hey, I'm kind of past that. It's more exciting to be building on Ethereum and what that could look like and what the rest of the world can look like, which is, I think, a really good perspective to have, and a very innovative perspective to have, because it's going to open your eyes, and it's going to allow you to innovate and create more than what's out there today, which shows, I think, in the work that you guys are doing and how successful you've been in growing the community of Chiliz already. Yeah.
And to go back to earlier, I said that, we plan to educate our users a bit about blockchain and crypto. Like you said, gaming, it's going to be way easier. So the esports fans, they have way less troubles using the app than the sports fans. They seem to really just get things like it's like a light switch just flicks on, and they understand like the concept. They get it completely. So that's why I'm so excited about the esports side of things at Chiliz.
And Cat's World says, when $1, but you don't have to answer that because we don't do price predictions on here.
What is the other one? What is the other question asking? It says, will there be Binance CHZ Parity, or is it Party or Parity?
Parity. I guess he's asking. So part of our new strategy is to launch these fan tokens on exchanges with the CHZ pair. So I can't comment on individual exchanges, but we are assessing our options and engaging with lots of discussion with lots of exchanges about listing fan tokens with a CHZ pair.
Gotcha. So
yes, I knew these would be the questions that the Turkish community are asking. Merhaba.
Do you have a challenge dealing with the exchanges when you have your own exchange?
No, because of so we made it very clear that we don't want to compete in the exchange space. The exchange, it's a tokenized sports exchange. We have like maybe 3 other pairs that are traded, and that's just like BTC, Ethereum, and Ripple. We're not like planning to list other altcoins. We don't want to compete in that space. We just want to be a place where people can get their hands on fan tokens for the first time.
Oh, that makes sense. Listening to you talk earlier, it reminded me there's a really great, I'll send you a link. There's a podcast on the founder of Shopify. And I just couldn't help but think, his path sounded a lot like yours. And, you know, he learned everything he knows from video games. And I think he created Ruby on Rails as well along the way, probably. When
That's
he had
cool.
spare
That's
time,
pretty cool.
you know,
Yeah.
why not?
No, Minecraft especially was a game that really unleashed a lot of creativity within people, whether it was programming, marketing, community building, just the tech system administration side of thing. Minecraft changed a lot of people's lives, like not just because they had fun playing the game, because they got taught a lot of skills, because of they wanted to be creative, they wanted to change the game, they wanted to modify the game, they wanted to run servers. So I think a lot of my success is thanks to Minecraft. So thank you, Notch, and thank you, Mojang, for that.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
I agree, man.
I've got two boys, and one of them is just a champion Fortnite player. He's amazing, and yeah, he's learning all these skills. He's learning about supply, demand, economics, marketing, social media. Like, he's learning about all of that stuff. His school's not teaching him any of that stuff. In fact, his school tells them not to do it. And it's amazing when I see just how good that he's become. Yet yesterday he goes, Dad, I really want to trade crypto. I really want to start doing this. I want to start day trading. I want to learn it. I said, hey, you know what? That's great. Let's open you up an account. In fact, I've got several open accounts that have nothing in them. Hey, you can use one of mine. That's fine. And he starts trading, and I was watching him, and I was noticing he's like, what's a pairing? Wait, why are there so many pairings against Ethereum? What is Dogecoin? Ooh, I like that one. I've heard of Dogecoin. Like, but then he goes to trade, and he just could not figure it out. And I come into like crypto here going, oh yeah, it's easy because I've done this for years. But then someone new, they don't know what's what, yet they're an expert player at at Fortnite. I mean, Joe, you were saying your friend the other day, I don't even remember what it was. They're building some huge government application or something, and they couldn't figure out how to trade. And it's like, it's amazing. We've almost grown accustomed to horrible user experiences in this space.
Yeah.
And just accepted it because, hey, you can make a lot of money, so we'll just do it.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting when we talk about esports and gaming and how that space has optimized itself so much.
Yeah.
And crypto has not. So.
No, I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, esports. I mean, just think of, the way that you're even transferring some crypto from an exchange to an exchange and trying to teach someone for the first time. It's like, well, no. Grab your Chiliz address. Like but you got to move it from your main account to your trading account. And then you got to, just like take this QR code and then do this. And then it's like, well, just take a screen grab. It's like, well, like there are like 28 things along the way that like a person that potentially isn't that savvy would get tripped up. And then in game, it seems like we were all so used to just hacking our way through all sorts of weird experiences that it was like, that's just how you manipulated and that's how you got it done. And so you're just used to all those random things and you trust it. It's like some people aren't even like, if they're sending $5,000, they won't even send like a test. They're like, well, I just used the QR code. I copied it. Like that should get there. It's like, you want to send like $5 first to make sure that like, you're not going to lose all that. It's just,
I do send tests myself. I trust it, but I still send tests.
Yeah. And I think growing up in gaming, it's just like you were saying, you're learning. Like I remember creating for our Rainbow Six clan, it was like a flash animation of like, it's the same thing as like a pump up video that you'd create now as like a football player or something like, but you're creating like a pump up video in something like Flash. And then you're designing out like the logo for your clan. And then you're figuring out in your interfacing with people, you got, almost like a leadership role. If you're in charge, you're almost telling, you got to say, hey man, you can't play tonight because you didn't perform the night before. We're letting this person play almost as like a coach. And you're doing that at like 14. And if you're better than the person that's 21, you're like 14 talking to a 21-year-old and telling them that, hey, you got to sit out this round. And then they bitch you out. And it's almost like these weird skill sets that you get to learn at a very, very young age. Because a lot of times people are pseudonyms, they don't know. And it's like I remember we used to use like, Roger Wilco on like my, to talk during, these things. And it's like, until someone heard your voice, they wouldn't even realize that you're like 13.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun when I was younger, shouting down the microphone, playing Call of Duty on Xbox. Those were some fun days. You know, I was like 14, 13. Lots of fun times.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'd love to go over some of your social stats on our site, if we could, for
Okay.
a moment, and just kind of discuss some of these things and let some of the community know kind of where you guys stack up.
John, do you want me to pull it up, or do you want to pull it up?
I've got it up if you want to share my screen.
You're up.
Cool. So one of the things, let me load engagement, and I'd love for you to talk about what was going on in June. Was this
June.
Barcelona?
No. But yes, Barcelona. It was in June. Yes, that was when the token sale was. Yes.
So I just want to put this into perspective. Chiliz is right now on our site. It's the 116th highest market cap. It's about 75 million. It looks like, and we're talking about engagement here. You know, if I compared this to say Bitcoin or Ethereum, let's compare this to Ethereum. So on June 9th, we had 118 million social engagements. And so what that's looking at, that's looking at deeper interaction. So that's looking at retweets and comments and things like that. So it's not like just top level posts that get nothing sometimes. It's like if there's something big and there's something worth talking about, that's what you're going to see in engagement. So if June 9th, you had 118 million. And if I looked at Ethereum, let's look at your 6-month social engagement. That was June 9th. You had more social engagement than Ethereum that day.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And
one of the reasons why I think that is because of, you know, with a coin such as Ethereum, that there's only so much you can discuss about it, right? You know, there's only unless there's like a super cool new feature. For example, right now with Ethereum, it's all about DeFi and it's all about you know, Ethereum 2.0. But with us, you know, we have lots of new things that spark out. You know, we have big announcements. So I think that that's a big contributing factor because it's new news and it's new news that's easily digested. For example, you know, announcing details about the Barcelona FTO, announcing how many people have deposited, you know, how much Chiliz have been deposited into the Chiliz exchange platform, which was like a few 100 million Chiliz of people. That's how we knew we were going to sell out before the sale even started because of how much Chiliz tokens were being deposited to both platforms, Socios.com and Chiliz.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I mean, considering again, you're the 115th biggest project versus the second biggest project that you guys build upon, to get more engagement than them is unbelievable. It actually is proof that you guys are actually like a different kind of an on-ramp that people don't typically talk about in crypto. Like people talk about these monetary on-ramps, but technically, what about the mindshare on-ramp?
Yeah.
So pretty amazing. And I think another thing I was looking at here is we have our alt rank metric. I'm gonna just go back. I don't even think you guys are around for a year. Yeah, you're not even a year. So when we look at this metric, I'd exclude this because we were just calculating basically that first candle doesn't mean a thing. But if you look the whole time, you guys have been below an alt rank of 400. The number one is the best, and this is like looking at daily. You guys have never even been above 400, meaning like that's incredible. Like that's super strong. And I think it goes back to, if you look at your price, hasn't really taken a massive dip. Your social engagements have nothing but go up, and that creates this consistency, which is pretty amazing to see. I mean, you have these huge spikes. This is not a little amount of social mentions on a given day. This is more than any project that's in the hundreds. I can guarantee that.
That's cool.
Pretty exciting. And I mean, if we look at some of these contributors, I want to see on some of these here, you know, we're talking, these are individuals accounts, like 1,000 people tweeting and things like that. So what else we got? Social dominance. So again, back to July 4th, you guys had 1.93% of all social posts in crypto. So
that's pretty awesome. I didn't know that. That's cool. I should probably put that metric in my reports to my boss. I think that's a pretty cool metric.
So if we're looking at that, that's like, you know, let's say that there were, you know, 200,000, actually there's more than that. There's usually like 300,000 or 400,000 posts a day. And then a good chunk of those are spam and bots.
Yeah.
And we weed those out as best we can. and we become really accurate at it, but like there's always some that get through. But if we're looking at like, say there's 200,000 genuine posts a day, you guys had 1.93% of the 200,000 posts that day. So that's pretty darn cool.
That is pretty cool.
Well, it goes back to without a you know, a community, there's no crypto. And Joe, we were talking about that earlier. I mean, it is the community. And if you guys are getting 2% of the mind share on some of these days, you know, which is equating to thousands of people, you know, and people are out there looking for different projects and adoption and user acquisition. It seems like, you know, the market that you guys are in, again, like we said, is a market that's going to grow, and that is, you know, the total addressable market size is gigantic, and it's a perfect place for crypto to live. And so I think this is where people are starting to look at a mass adoption to come from is sports, and that small piece of that potentially being like a gambling. But, you know, that's why it will be interesting to see, you know, the innovations that you guys made as far as, and what starts fitting into that mission statement of, you know, fan engagement, right?
Yeah.
And what creates that loyalty and keeping people in the ecosystem of those clubs. And I know over in Europe, some of those football clubs, I mean, hundreds of years of history, and ingraining yourself into that, I think is pretty epic.
Yeah. And actually, just to go back on that, the how we got the name of the app, Socios, it's like it means associate in Spanish, and it was like this special club for Barcelona fans and I think Real Madrid fans, where they could, you know, vote on the president of the club and board members and stuff like that. So that's a bit of how we took a bit of old history of this club and we brought it to this new kind of era of fan engagement.
I love that.
Very cool.
And it's so different, you know, some of those clubs versus here. I mean, people are very passionate. I think the NFL probably has like the most passionate and largest scale thing as far as in America. But I just always thought it was interesting with like the different levels of teams in football in Europe, and even some of these like teams that are in the lower levels, but they still have fans that are just absolutely rabid and diehard. And I think that's it's amazing. But it is kind of interesting going to like a match, and you're seeing like, you know, a 55-year-old man cry when his team is losing like a regular season game. I mean, it's like that type of passion is just unprecedented, and tapping into that is genius.
It's true. Yeah.
Love it.
Cool, man. Well, Joe, I mean, we're butting up on an hour here. I know it's late. I just want to really thank you for coming on and, you know, talking through everything with us and talking through Chiliz. And man, we'd love to have you back on here. You know, you've got some great insights, and we'd love to kind of keep up with what you guys are working on. And I mean, definitely give a shout out to, you know, where people can find you, find Chiliz. How do they get involved? How do they get engaged?
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been great. I've been a follower of you guys for quite some time. I guess you guys probably know that. You can find me on Twitter, Joe B. Grech. That's Grech, Joe B. Grech. And then Chiliz is just at Chiliz, Chiliz, and Socios at Socios. Anything else? No. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to get off this call and I'm going to go for a swim. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, enjoy it, man. Enjoy the evening. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. All right, brother?
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you, everyone, for joining.